It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Phil Spencer. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Hi, good evening. I'm good, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. What are we going to be talking about? Because most of the time people come on, they have a book or a film or something to promote. What exactly are you promoting? Your jewelry business?
Yeah, that's right. So we're a fine jewellers based in London, in Hatton Garden in London, in the UK. And actually, one of the things that we're working on at the moment is a conference in Bogota, in Colombia, where we have a partnership with a local distribution company in the Emerald dealing district. So we're actually looking to promote that. We've attracted some of the leading industry experts to join us, as well as some of the leading luxury journos from the UK. So we're looking now to sort of broaden the appeal and look for sort of potential investors, journalists, people who are interested in the industry to join us at that event next April.
All right. Well, this is something new for me because I've never talked to anybody about jewelry and fine gemstones. I know very little about it. So perhaps you can enlighten me a bit.
Yes, so essentially, Colombia produces the world's finest emeralds. So it's a bit like an Italian suit or a German sports car. They have a national association with the highest quality in that particular area. So we go straight to source. We purchase stones directly from the mine owners and the top level dealers. And we then cut and polish them, grade them, and export them around the world. So we're focusing very much on increasing our production of these beautiful gemstones and sort of raising awareness of them. I think over the years, diamonds have sort of dominated the market, but now as De Beers kind of decline into the background more and more within the gemstone industry, we're seeing coloured gemstones very much increasing in popularity. Across the globe, lots of celebrity endorsements. The Duchess of Cambridge recently purchased a sapphire wedding ring, and lots of other celebrities around the globe have recently endorsed coloured gemstones. So it's a really exciting time for us to be involved in this market, and we're looking to do everything we can to help promote the beauty of colour, essentially, when it comes to gemstones.
Is there any sort of stigma with jewelry and stones? I'm just thinking of that movie Blood Diamond that was made several years ago. Do you run into any of that?
Yeah, so conflict gems is a major issue in our industry, and to some extent it's been mitigated by things like the Kimberley process, which is an attempt at sort of scrutinising the origins of diamonds in particular. But the way we sort of mitigate those issues are that we actually trace the stones that we deal right back to source. So we know the exact mine of origin. We know that mine's environmental practices. We know their labour relations. We know their health and safety record. So we have a very good idea of the ethics surrounding the production of each stone that we purchase. And then we obviously pay our craftspeople and cutters and polishers, etc., and setters. We pay them a fair wage as well. So everyone along the whole supply chain is treated well. So that's something that's been overlooked to some extent. People tend to focus on conflict gems and blood diamonds and so forth, but actually that's one aspect of the issue. But also there's a lot of abuse in the system. And a lot of people taking advantage of people particularly in third world countries, where they don't necessarily have the voice that they have in Western countries. So there's no trade unions, there's no one to speak up for the people who are actually on the coal face, as it were, producing these items from source. So that's certainly the sort of moral responsibility that we have as an international business to make sure that we look after those practices along the whole length of the supply line.
Again, I told you I have very little knowledge about precious stones. How does one tell the difference between a real one and a fake one, a synthetic one?
That's a very interesting question. So recently, you may have seen a lot of publicity has been given to lab-grown diamonds. It's often referred to as synthetic diamonds. They're not actually synthetic. They are real diamonds. But they are cultured in a laboratory. They have exactly the same chemical composition as a natural diamond, but they haven't been produced by millions of years of high pressure under the ground. So that's something that has been very, very tricky over recent years to sort of ascertain whether or not one person could tell the difference between a natural stone and a lab grown. However, the GIA, the General Geological Institute of America, now have the right technology and the right techniques to discern one from the other. But of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with purchasing a stone that's lab grown, and we in fact offer them to our customers ourselves. The key thing is transparency, that people are informed of the exact origin of the stones they're purchasing, and that one is natural versus another, which may be lab grown. So that's something that's it's creeping into the market. It's a massive factor in the Chinese market, so that they're now experiencing up to 30% of their diamond sales are from lab-grown diamonds. I think that trend will certainly continue. For example, the pink diamond mine, the Argyle mine in Australia, which produces the vast majority of the world's pink diamonds, has recently closed down the Argyle. So that's massively restricted the supply of pink diamonds into the marketplace, which are the most sought after type of diamond. So naturally, people are going to think, well, let's put more effort into producing lab grown pink diamonds. So I think you're going to see a gradual sort of shift towards lab grown, which of course also carry the advantage that they've been ethically sourced. So you can be certain they've not been produced as a result of conflict gems. So that's another sort of potential advantage to them as well.
How much cheaper are they than natural diamonds?
It varies quite a lot. It depends on what quality they are. Typically, for a good quality lab-grown diamond, you're looking at around about 30 to 40% discount to a comparable natural stone. So they're often surprised some because they expect them to be a lot cheaper than that. But actually, the process of growing them is extremely intensive and expensive. So so you're looking at about a third less for a lab-grown stone versus a comparable natural one. But that may change over time. So as these techniques improve, that they may gradually become cheaper and cheaper, which is probably going to be the case. But as things stand now, yes, you're looking at about a one third discount on the price of a comparable natural stone.
I've always been a bit curious as to how people determine whether there are diamonds deep in the ground or not. Is it like oil exploration in a sense?
Yeah, a certain amount of it is done through geophysics. Usually it's to do with veins. So I know that, for example, with emeralds, they tend to trace, once they've struck an emerald seam, they will trace it to its fullest extent, both longitudinally and also up and down as well. So that tends to be how they process them. But there's a variety of techniques they're now looking into developing, which will enable ultrasound essentially to predict what is under the ground and essentially de-risk some of the future mining operations. Which is very exciting technology that's coming to the fore now. But there's always an element of luck when it comes to gemstone mining. I know, for example, they were building a road in rural Colombia about 5 years ago, and the road workers suddenly drilled into a vast emerald vein. They do actually stumble across them sometimes. One of the world's biggest diamonds was literally stumbled over by a schoolgirl in Tanzania about 30 years ago. A very large pink diamond, in fact. However much technology you put into this, you do find that there's still chance, and luck does often yield some quite interesting results.
So when you said vein, that reminds me of coal mining. So it's similar to that, yeah?
Yeah, and in fact, diamonds are carbon, so they are in effect crushed heated coal, or they do have a similarity. They were originally living organisms many millions of years ago, and they were just gradually formed under extreme pressure and extreme heat over an extremely long period of time. So yes, there are similarities between all the various ores and minerals that are mined and gemstones.
So is there a finite number of diamonds, I suppose, on the planet left? Do we know how much is left?
We don't know exactly, no. I mean, there's been some very interesting research done recently that suggests that a lot of asteroids may contain large quantities of diamonds and gold and other precious metals and gemstones. So that's a very interesting idea that potentially in a few decades we may be able to actually mine asteroids and find new sources of very rare and very precious commodities from those. But I think there's a general feeling that we have we're not necessarily approaching exhaustion, but we have probably mined the majority of the easy finds in terms of gemstones that are found on the terrestrial sphere. Okay. So it may be that in the not too distant future, they have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper to actually find the remaining deposits. Are
you a retail outlet or are you wholesale?
We do both. So we work along the whole length of the supply chain. So right from sourcing stones and cutting and polishing them right the way through to the shop window, essentially, and everywhere along that chain. So we supply a lot of manufacturing jewelers, a lot of gem dealers, and some other auction houses and dealers as well.
All right. We do have to wrap this up, unfortunately. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, sure. So our website is londonde.com. That's London as in the city, and then Delta Echo.com. We're also very active on social media. So you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and all the major platforms. So we'd encourage people to leave comments and engage with our posts and give any feedback that they would like to.
My producer just sent me a quick text message. He says, ask him who owns the Richard Burton Elizabeth Taylor diamond these days.
Oh, that's a good question. I know that that auction back in 2011 was the world's biggest or the world's highest value gem auction. I know that Kim Kardashian bought some of the pieces at that auction, but I'm not sure that particular one who actually owns that now. So that's a very interesting question, but I'm afraid I don't know the actual answer to it. I think some of the bidders were anonymous, so it could well be that it's found its way into a sovereign wealth fund or a bank vault somewhere.
You don't know what they ended up paying for it, do you?
No, I know the overall auction was $150 million, wow. But I can't remember the actual breakdown for the individual pieces, but it was quite eye-watering. I remember watching that with keen interest back at the time.
Well, back when he purchased it, when Richard Burton purchased it, he paid $1 million for it, which was an unbelievable... in 1960, whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah, so it would certainly be in the tens of millions, even without the provenance of having been purchased by Richard Burton and gifted to Elizabeth Taylor. It is interesting how that multiple can be quite extreme. That once it's got that historical provenance, it can add 10 times the value to an item.
Oh, certainly. Well, look at what a guitar from John Lennon would be worth versus just an ordinary guitar, even if it's the same guitar.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, Phil, thanks so much for coming on the show, and best of luck with your business.
Thank you very much indeed for your time.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Love coffee, huh? But wait a minute. It seems like every time you finish a cup of coffee, you get all of these side effects along with it. Heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, acid reflux. As the world's first and only organic acid-free coffee, Tyler's Coffee is able to provide a healthier option in the solution for more than 100 million individuals who have sensitive stomachs or suffer from acid-related modalities. This is Tyler's acid-free coffee. Coffee without the consequences.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions. You're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Rocky Singh Kandola. Hey, Rocky, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Douglas. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Your bio is pretty incredible. I don't even know where to start with that. Been through all kinds of stuff, it sounds like. Why don't you just sort of tell us your story from when you were a kid to now, sort of the quick version. Give us 5-10 minutes or so.
So I guess the best place to start would be basically at the beginning, possibly.
Yeah.
My parents were actually born in India. They both moved to the States probably about 5 or 6 years before I was born, in the late 70s, early 80s. They came straight to New York, but quickly moved the family down south to Mississippi. There's no really Indian culture, Indian tradition down there. It kind of got mixed in with, the kids around us pretty quick, my brother and sister and I. Our parents really wanted us to stay home and study and work and be with the family. And, where we were, we wanted to be with our friends, be out and about, play sports. And so me and my father started butting heads pretty fast at an early age. And that kind of caused the next years of my life, from around 11 to 17, 18, to be in and out of boot camps, military schools, boarding schools. I basically had a pattern of every 6 months or so I'd be, in a program or a school or a facility, and then 6 months back at home. I went to two of these facilities called the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs. These schools are basically, they call them schools, for-profit businesses that operate, in very manipulative ways, being that they basically kind of lie, or at the very least manipulate parents into thinking that, their kids are going to be amazing schools with good care, medical and educational, and as well as, manipulate the kids and brainwash the kids for, in a multitude of ways. All of that couldn't be further from the truth. These schools are very, very abusive and traumatic experiences for people that went through them at my age 20 years ago, and people that are sitting in them right now as we're speaking on this podcast. They are prevalent all across the world. Many of these places now have been shut down due to severe allegations and even lawsuits based on child abuse, torture, sexual abuse, rape, physical abuse, even suicide, and not taking care of the kids when they're supposed to be, as well as not having accredited abilities to give people diplomas. So in my case, I actually graduated high school from one of these places, and I started college very fast at 17. However, a couple of years later, it was found out to be that I'd ever even had a high school diploma, because this school, that was very, very expensive, wasn't accredited to be giving out diplomas. They're very crazy places where you walk in, it's very structured. You get to the back of the facility, all of a sudden your clothes are stripped, your hair is stripped. You start getting yelled at, cursed at. You get your arm grabbed and pushed around, told what to do, standing in line, no sitting, standing, talking, eating, or anything without permission, no contact with the outside world or your parents or your family or anything of that nature at all. In fact, we're not allowed to talk to our peers inside of there. We all found each other on Facebook through groups. And, our brothers and sisters, we call each other survivors. Wow. We kind of share our stories a little bit on there, because a lot of people, I'm very new to actually talking about this publicly, but a lot of my brothers and sisters, they don't like talking about it at all. When they do try to, the amount of emotions that come up almost stopped them from even being able to speak about it. For me, going back into my story, after 17, when I got done with these schools as a kid, I kind of went crazy. I dove in straight into a lifestyle of selling drugs, doing drugs, women, partying, disobeying authority, no respect for any authority or elders, and in my life. And that quickly wound me up in prison by the time I think I was 23, 24, for a distribution of controlled substances charge, namely cocaine, is one of the things that I was selling back then. And more of an addiction to, just being in the lifestyle more than anything else for me personally. Everyone has different reasons, and obviously the money is, there necessary as well. But
Right.
For me, it was kind of like a pattern of just, believing I'm a bad kid, believing I'm a certain type of person, and not believing that there's anything else out there for me, and this is who I am. And I remember 10 years ago, I actually accepted that, and I had no direction. I would wake up and just ride around, do drugs, sell drugs, and look for the next party every single day. Until, after prison, something kind of a higher power, a greater energy came to me one day after everything was done. And it came in the form of my father asking me a question as well. And that question was, hey, you're not coming home anymore. You're not asking us for money. Do you want to get out of town for a while? Do you want to leave where you are and I'll pay for it? Now, since he'd sent me around so much of my life, I was very resistant to it at first. However, something about the way he said it allowed, some kind of like loving, greater energy to come inside of me. And I really thought about it and said yes. And that began 7 or 8 years ago, began my journey of leaving behind robbing, selling, getting robbed, knives, guns, violence, women, any drug you could name, anything illegal you can imagine, that entire lifestyle and that identity that I created for myself, and that eventually my peers in society started to call me that as well, that I had accepted. That was my beginning of letting that go. And it began with just, like I said, a greater energy coming into me having the idea that I possibly can do something different in my life, and I might be able to do something better, and I need to go ahead and give it a shot. And then taking the leap of faith and leaving my girlfriends, my circles I was comfortable in, my home, the money I had accumulated, and the things I had accumulated at that time, and let them all go and go to India. And, from now, 7 years ago until now, when I started, it's been quite a journey. I've had my ups and downs, my slips and falls. I was married and separated in that time as well. However, I have kept one thing very strong, which is not going back to that old lifestyle. Even throughout my slips, I've maintained that. And, I actually was able to start a business. The business plan that I made was one that I wrote while sitting in an Alabama state prison, years ago, that went in India, and I had this change of heart and mind of wanting to do something with my life beyond just partying and looking to, quote unquote, be cool or look cool. This business fell in my lap again, and I made one Facebook post, had really good, responses from it, and haven't looked back since that day. And that's where I am now, living in West LA. My showroom's in Beverly Hills. We currently cater to businesses in all across the world, and have clients all across the world as well, and we're steadily growing and scaling.
What is your business again?
So the name of the company is called Hair Made in India. We do B2B direct sales as well to business owners, salons, distributors, and things of that nature for human hair extensions in a raw sense, in a raw material way, so they can kind of do what they want to do with them from there.
You provide the hair.
Exactly, the hair.
Okay. Oh, well, that's cool. All right. There's certainly no shortage of hair extensions in L.A., that's for sure.
Oh, not at all. L.A. has hair in every corner almost.
Well, L.A., I think, is the hair extension capital of the world, next to plastic surgery.
I agree. Yeah, both points.
Yeah, I've had a couple of plastic surgeons on from L.A., and, they just say the same thing. So they say business is booming. I did want to ask you one thing about your father. Is your relationship good with your father now? Because did he have any, I assume he knew or found out what was going on in those schools, yeah?
So the first school that I came back from, there was a guy in particular named Jason Phillinson. I was very sick one day, and I was in there. They have 2 rooms of punishment. The first one where you sit on the edge of a steel chair and write notes for hours on end listening to audio tapes. And the second is called observational placement, or restraint and restriction, R&R, where they put you in a room, put you on your stomach, on the concrete, chin on the ground, hands and feet tied behind your back. and hold you there for days and let one hand go for rice and oranges a few times. I was actually kicked down a hallway, thrown off a chair, and put in this position for a while as well. When I got back, I told my parents of that in particular, as well as, something I feel like a sexual nature that happened to me in that school when I was, I think, 11 or 12 years old. And as I said before, these schools manipulate so much and tell the parents or the kids are going to manipulate you that a lot of times dealing with a tough to deal with child in a school, a parent doesn't know what to believe. And I remember bringing it up to them and feeling like they were looking at me like I was lying or manipulating again. And I told myself, I just would never talk about it again. I remember way back then. Fast forward to now, my parents and I have at the very least a relationship, and much, much better than anything you could call it, 10 or 15 years ago. Partly because, they've grown and changed, and definitely partly because I've grown and changed as well. However, when I do these podcasts and I come home and they hear them, they tell me like, Rocky, like, what are you doing? Like, we didn't send you there. Like, my mom will tell me, I didn't send you there. Dad sent you there. And, if we didn't send you there, like, you would have died. You'd have broken all the bones in your body. Which, I was a wild kid, but I think I would have found my way, just like most people do. But they didn't believe me so much after I told them that they actually sent me back to the same school in a different location with the same guy, Jason Phillinson, who was the admin at the new school I went to. So the first one was 11, the second one was 17. For a large part of my life, I harbored a lot of hate, a lot of anger, and everything towards them. And, one of the reasons I was able to get beyond the younger stuff as well as, leave it and now come back and talk about it is because as an adult, after 18, how much, for lack of a better word, like crap that I got into, how many times I was almost, in deadly car accidents, getting stabbed, getting my arm cut off, getting my jaw broke, getting my entire face reconstructive surgery. It kind of made me forget those childhood times. And as an adult, moving on, doing better in my life and on this journey of healing, I've had to realize that a lot of the ways I think, a lot of the bad dreams I have, a lot of the reactions I have when it comes to daily life stems from a lot of stuff that happened in childhood. So I found it more important now it all started with, me writing a journal. That journal turned into a book idea, and then the book idea turned into speaking in public. The speaking in public started with my clients asking me about my story and me being ashamed to tell them and, lying to them about it in the past, until I got to a point one day recently in my business where I was like, if I can't be myself, share my story as it happened and as I've came to the place of success and change that I have, and do this business, then, maybe it's not right for me. So let me just give it a shot. And so many of my clients, get so much inspiration and motivation because they hear my story, they hear the background, they can relate to, tough backgrounds, and they see how I overcame and changed that. So it's kind of like a catch-22. It sucks to say I never want to see anyone go through what I had to go through. However, at the same exact time, everything I went through, I do believe it all happened for a reason, and it made me who I am today, and gives me the ability to share, experience, motivation, strength, hope, and encouragement with everyone I speak with and meet.
Well, it certainly is an encouraging story in the sense that it gets people to compare their life to yours and what you went through. Most people in this life have not gone through that kind of a severe childhood. And, it's the old thing about, well, I guess I didn't have it so bad then after listening to what this guy went through. And that does sort of spark something in people about, maybe I should try a little harder, or maybe I should push a little more to get what I want. And, I think that's an encouraging message from you.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. One of the big changes I made when I started changing my life was, ridding myself of my old distractions and friends and implementing nothing but positivity and encouragement and motivational stuff into my ears and my eyes on a daily basis, which I still do. When you said that, the comparison thing, I think David Goggins popped in my mind all of a sudden. He had, so many disabilities and stuff as a child and so many physical things, and he kind of overcame all that to become like a world-class marathon runner, athlete, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And I think that it's really powerful just to see, as anybody, like just to see someone else, and not in a sense of necessarily compare it, but to just observe and analyze and say, wow, like, this person had XYZ going on, and, you know, they've accomplished the goals that I wanted to do, you know, and even beyond that. And I don't even have some of the limiting factors that they had. You know what, maybe I can actually do this. Maybe it's time to relook at it or reframe it. And, you know, people like that motivate me all the time. All these limiting beliefs, you know, as a kid, being sent away and you know, not being able to trust your family and not feeling love from them and things like that, we start to kind of have these frames and these beliefs in our mind that we can't do certain things, or, you know, we're not able to. And I think that's nonsense. I think that, you know, when you frame it in your mind properly and you really dedicate yourself to it and you understand that you can do it and there is a way to get there, and you're comfortable with the fact of not having to get there and the journey being the magic along the way that'll teach you what you need to know, anything is possible. And even in the pursuit of pursuing that anything is possible, you'll realize that there's so much more out there that is possible, that, you know, you might have a shift in mind or shift in course of your goals that you are pursuing. So it's really powerful.
Have you written a book about all of this?
I'm currently writing a book. There's 2 books. The first one was my history about all this, and it's been very tough to get through it. I started, like I said, before I started speaking, before I started sharing more. I started during COVID and alone, so I had a lot of, like, emotional stuff come up. I had a point where I was, like, having just really vivid, like, nightmares, you know, every single night while I'm talking about this and writing about it. I asked my dad to actually send me my journals back from a childhood age, and I started reading them. I kind of just sprung it all on myself all at once, so it's been tough to write that one. However, an idea I had while I was writing that was to take the journals that I had handwritten, send them to somebody to get them digital, and kind of make it in a story form. And that one should be launching within the next week or 2 here. I'm going to have, like, you know, the handwritten diagrams that I did as a kid, as well as the digital copy on the right-hand side of the book. So it'll kind of be like an intro, like a prequel to the next book, where I'm talking more about, I'm diving into details about the past, but also kind of leading the reader into understanding how to overcome that, how I overcame that, and the successes that followed later in life after all that. The first one is kind of more just showing someone in that state, you know, in that state of mind, in that situation in your life, from childhood prison to rehab to adult prison to, you know, that whole circle.
Right. Well, Rocky, we do have to wrap this up. Do you have a website that you want to give out? Anything on social media or real website? Yeah.
Of course. So my name, once again, is Rocky Kandola. I'm on all social media under my name as well as my business name, and that business name is Hair Made in India. Everything from YouTube to Pinterest to Twitter to, you know, Facebook. We have very active and prevalent social media profiles in all those. My direct website is just Rocky Kandola. That's ROCKYKANDOLA.com. On that website, I have blogs as well as links to all the podcasts and videos I've done about my past life and childhood. Also on that website are links to all the businesses that I currently own and operate, from my CBDT company to my human hair extension company, to my IMDb, and even to my new vacation rental company that I just started with. So there's plenty of info out there. You know, you can even Google me and reach out to me and find me. I do answer my phone. I love business. I love the journey, but the stuff that fills my heart, the stuff that I love to give my time to, are conversations just like me and you're having right here. Someone needs an ear to listen to, or someone to run some ideas by. Even if you have a kid that you're dealing with is tough, give me a call. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a sage. I can't give you all the answers, but I can definitely share my experience and my thoughts on what I went through and how it could possibly help you.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing. Sounds like you're doing all right, though, and I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a journey. You know, it's ups and downs. I'm dealing with a couple of stressful situations today, but I'm not using the past tools that I used to deal with them in the past. So it's just one step at a time. You deal with it. You know, the one thing I do like to tell everybody, that healing is not like a linear line. It's not like a A and B point. It's a journey. It's a dance, and be comfortable with that. Get ready for the ride, because it's a beautiful ride. Just have to appreciate and be grateful for every part of it every day.
Rocky, thanks so much.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.